Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the road trip east of the Mississippi continues. Yeah, it's so hot here today that I can't work on any trees. I'm gonna go where it's air conditioned and I'm gonna do some editing. Here's what we got going on. After I left the Chicago area, I saw Chris Baker at the Chicago Botanical Gardens. Amazing 2 episodes. Go click on those if you haven't. I got to visit the one and only Tom from Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors. What a gem of a human being. Oh my gosh, go check out my interview with Tom and look at his backyard. And now we're heading a little bit south and we're going to Indianapolis, Indiana. So, one of the first couples to respond to my request for people east of the Mississippi on my road trip was Steven and Beth Meyer. So thank you to Steven and Beth for reaching out to me, and they put me up in this fancy hotel and we had a great dinner. And I have to say, we talk about this in the interview a little bit later in the episode today. Make sure you stick around for the interview. It's really a good one, I think. And we talk about the oddity of me taking a trip. And my wife asked me a couple of times, like, do you know these people you're going to go see? And we met at a public place, and I have to tell you, Steven and Beth were 2 of the nicest people on the planet, and so fun. We laughed, and we laughed hard when we were out having dinner. And we really didn't talk that much about bonsai, although we did. But it was just fun to laugh and to be with people. And that's the whole thing about this road trip, this YouTube thing of mine that I'm doing, and everybody else, the community. Can I say it enough times? It is such a fantastic community. So let's get to the fantasticness of Steven and Beth, Indianapolis, Indiana. Let's go check out his backyard, not to be confused with Steve's Backyard Bonsai. This is Steven Meyer. And we'll go check out his trees. And we do have a sit down about halfway through that was just so easy to talk with him about bonsai, and I just had a blast. When I edited the section of that part of the show, I just sat there and watched it, and I didn't make any more cuts and edits and shrinking it down. I actually enjoyed talking with Steven so much, I thought I'd share it all with you as well. Please enjoy the episode. We'll catch you on the tail end. Wow, this is one big, we believe, sugar maple. Look at the Nabari, everyone. Look at that. 3 trunks up there, about 5-6 feet off the ground. But we're not here to talk about that tree. We're talking about bonsai trees. So welcome everyone to Steve's backyard. Steven, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming by. Glad you could work us into your trip.
Well, you know, this is fantastic. The hospitality's been fantastic. Thanks for the room last night.
Did I mention I was on the 6th floor, kind of like penthouse type suite last night? Thanks again to Steve and Beth.
Of course.
Amazing. I was in a penthouse in the sky. So let's show everybody a little bit about your world. I have to go do this right away. What is the first thing Dave noticed when he walked in, everybody? Yeah, Meyer Bonsai Acres. All right.
It's not as many acres as you have now, but
you know, bonsai in miniature.
Right.
This is an acre, right, of trees. So tell us a little bit about your collection here in your bonsai world in this greenhouse.
Yeah, so I started growing bonsai in 2019 and then really kind of got into it during the pandemic with a lot of other people. And
for sure.
You know, it's kind of gotten out of control a little bit.
Never out of control.
Found out pretty early that I wanted to have a greenhouse and be able to nurture these and have more trees than what I could have otherwise.
Sure.
So yeah, I kind of have an eclectic collection and of, you know, a little bit of everything, because trying to figure out what I like, what I can actually care for.
Yeah, no doubt.
What thrives in our environment.
Looks like we have an azalea up here on the left.
Yeah, so I did a ton of repotting this year. Almost everything was repotted this year. So
you were busy then.
This is one that.
Oh, look at that fun bottom. Very nice.
I've been working it. I let it bloom this year, just to see what it looked like, because I'd been cutting them off, and they're bright pink.
Yeah.
With white center, so I put it in a white pot this year.
Oh, very nice.
And then I'm trying to condense it down a little bit. So I pretty hard pruned it, and it's back budding really well. I'm very happy about it. So
very good. And you haven't let it flower very much in the past, just to keep the energy into the tree?
Yeah, this was the first year I let it flower.
Sure.
So, just because I'd never actually seen it before, I didn't know what color they would turn out to be, and I knew I wanted to figure out what kind of pot to put it in. So,
yeah. How long have you had that guy?
That's one of my older trees that I've had probably 5 years. But
Okay.
I think this was one of the first ones I purchased. Yeah.
Very nice.
It's a cork bark. I did some pretty
Hefty.
dramatic,
There,
and
yeah.
I decided to accentuate the curve in the trunk a little bit more this year when I repotted it, and so these two had to come off.
Sure.
But it's recovering pretty well.
Very nice. If anybody doubts the bonsai of a mini jade, I have a tree to show everybody from the Chicago Botanical Garden. He has one in that collection, Chris Baker. Oh my word. And it's like, yeah, that's bonsai, and it's beautiful.
This portulacaria right here, which was originally created by Jim Smith from Florida, this was an exchange I did with Aaron Packard from the Pacific Bonsai Museum. He took an Alberta spruce forest that we had, and he gave us this. I just think, there with the climate and the rain and stuff, it was not thriving as well. Here, it certainly gets humid, but it's, we have a lot more, I think, heat and sun. And it's done really well here for us. I absolutely love it.
That one is fantastic.
So, yeah, absolutely stunning.
They're really great. I travel a lot, so it's one that you don't have to worry about, and
They're harder to kill, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can kind of leave them alone.
And you can really direct them where they need to go. Since I repotted it, I'm letting it grow out. But,
For sure.
But then I have some ficus. This was actually something I picked up. My wife picked up at Costco.
Oh yeah.
And it was in a big pot, and it was buried to here. And I was like,
oh my gosh, look at that.
So,
we've got movement.
Yeah.
And a bigger base.
So I kind of like these,
the aerial roots
aerial
that kind of support
roots.
things, yeah.
I always like them, there's one over here that kind of look like a boat that's tied to a dock, and it's holding it in place.
That's right.
So this is a willowy ficus, also one of the ones I've had longest,
Yeah,
and one of
that's
the
a
ones I
big,
struggle
thick
with.
trunk. Yeah. Why are you struggling with it, do you think?
Well, so this was the top of it that I just cut off.
Oh, okay. Oh wow. Yeah.
So
struggle in what sense though? Just what to do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of got it's got this. I cut this off because it had inverse taper, and I was like, oh, this will make a nice little mame.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of the inverse taper is resolving itself now that it's cut off, and the roots are
going to help
out.
swell that area.
Yeah. And it again, I cut this off last summer, and it is just thriving and growing really well. So, but
that's awesome.
But what's left? I kind of struggle with the front because this is so thick back here, and I don't know. I think I probably just need to cut that all off and make this the tree.
As Nigel would say, big cut coming up. That would be a big one. Yeah. Yeah, hard to say. In time some of these wounds kind of cover themselves up, and if those branches thicken up, it wouldn't be as much of an eyesore. But I think for me as well, sometimes those visions are hard to know, hard to see, and if you haven't had a tree long enough to know how it's going to react, what is that going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah, and the other thing is that this is a ficus, so I have to bring it in the winter.
Yep.
So I don't want it to be an enormous tree, and
Yeah.
So this is actually the oldest thing that I have, the longest thing I've had. It's a corkscrew willow, and this is actually how I got into watching bonsai videos on YouTube, because I was like, all right, I got 6 of these. This is the only one I have left because I've killed them. But I was really struggling with how to maintain them, and I watched a Nigel video because he had a weeping willow.
Yeah.
So I kind of the tray of water, almost from when they bud out in the spring. I have it in water, but then you really have to trim them when they're still growing. Every time I would trim them in the spring or in the fall, they would just die back. And I've had that experience with beech and birch as well, where like I have to
Prune them when
Prune
they're
'em
new
when
and
they're
young
growing,
and not lignified really yet. You
Yeah.
got that old wood, it's better on them.
So I love how kind of crazy, I've not wired this or anything, it just grows this way.
Right.
So I'll probably trim it one more time this year before. But
Yeah, on my last road trip, I didn't have mine in a tray of water when I left for my road trip, and guess what tree didn't make it that year? Didn't get quite enough water from the sprinkler.
I've managed to do this mostly with clip and grow.
Yeah.
Like from time to time I'll wire this down.
Sure. Is this a tiger bark?
It's a tiger bark ficus, yeah. And this is also one where I've cut the top off of it several times, different places, and I have a bunch of them around.
A bunch of them sitting around, yeah.
I guess probably all of this.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's the tiger bark cuttings.
Stuff, yeah.
Future bonsai.
So, but yeah, I repotted them this year. It didn't miss a beat either, but I think I don't like to wire. Frankly, I just don't have time to do a lot of it. But I think this year, before, like it has like the pads are just developing on their own really well.
They really are.
So, and I did just repot this. I've seen. This is one of the things I was going to ask you about. I've seen a lot of comments about the lava rock.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who don't like it.
The soil debate. Here we
Yeah,
go. Let's jump down the deep well.
And I don't make my own soil. I buy it because again, like it's
Yeah.
a matter of time.
Time.
But I've not had any issues with it, and I was curious as to why people are so
Opposed to it.
Yeah.
That is a great question. The pros that we've seen through the Minnesota Bonsai Society have been now all jumping on this bandwagon of saying, we're just not using it. I did read something once, a post or somewhere from, I don't remember who, I'm horrible at remember those things, but they talked about how they had like just lava rock in the bottom of a pot and how the roots literally just stopped dead in their tracks right at the
Really?
lava rock. So I think for people young into bonsai, if they don't have the resources to buy a lot of akadama and go maybe half akadama pumice, which is what I'm recommending now, and that's what I'm using for the last full year plus now, no pumice unless it's a few straggler pieces. Yeah, it's a great filler. So I mean, if you have 40 and 40,
Yeah.
maybe 20 of the lava rock, I can't see how it'd be that harmful.
Yeah.
If the roots are going like, forget this, then they have a branch die off or something. I don't know that science, but we just had Andrew Robson in town and Peter T in the last couple of weeks, and both of them again reiterating that they don't use lava at all anymore. So, good question. I've used it for my entire bonsai career until last year. I think my trees were fine. Are they better the last couple of years? Perhaps, but like everything else in bonsai, for what reason?
Yeah.
The microclimate change, the wet spring, the dry year last year, my greenhouse. I mean, how many factors, like any independent study, it's like there's too many extraneous things out there. Like, I don't know what caused it. Less bug. I mean, less, I don't know. I don't know if it's the soil. So we could spend days on that topic, right?
Yeah. I repot pretty regularly, so like I know it breaks down pretty easily, but
I love the color of that trunk. It's such a rich color on that one right now. Was it recently wet? You watered it probably,
Yeah, I
right?
watered it
Yeah,
this
I love it
morning.
when they're dark.
And this one, I really like. This is one of my favorite trees, even though it's again clip and grow.
Yeah.
And it kind of got all, and it was the top of
One of the other
one
trees.
of the other ones. Actually, I think it was the top of this one. But when I cut it off, like I buried it pretty deeply this time, but it's got a huge root spread
You've got
already.
a flare already at the bottom there.
So
Yeah. Fun. You got some Japanese maples in your collection?
I do, and I'm trying to air layer them. I checked them yesterday, I guess, and they're not taking. Makawa, Yatsabutsa.
Okay, one I don't have.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's got really tight leaves, but yeah, I thought really the tree is probably here.
For sure.
It's got a great root base as well, but when I checked it yesterday, and this one as well, they're just not taking.
Okay. Oh, that's a thick trunk too. But they're not taking, huh? Yeah.
They're callousing over, but
Did you hormone them?
I did, yeah.
I know a lot of people say with maples you just don't have to, and it should root for you in a few weeks. I mean, really. And how long? You said July? 1st of July?
July 4th, yeah.
Okay.
I did all 3 of these in July 4th. But,
yeah, and we're not into August yet, so, you know, maybe we just need a couple more weeks.
But I thought I'd practice on these. So these are some like other Japanese maples that are grafted. So I want to just grow these out so I can air layer it off.
Yeah.
But
Looks like it's a weeping style there, man. That way that one's growing.
yeah. Ryu Sai.
Now, where do you pick up most of your trees? Are these Indianapolis nurseries? Or you buy them online, or
both? I buy a lot of trees from Weigert's, but otherwise, you know, local nurseries.
Yeah.
We talked about Tony yesterday.
Yeah.
He inspired me to get a hawthorn.
He inspired a lot of people to get a hawthorn. Look at that.
And I just loved that trunk.
Yeah.
And I did, so I've had this now for, I think this is the 2nd year I've had it, I guess. And it was in a big pot. And when you could see all of this, but when I took it out of the pot, like the roots were terrible. And so I did Nigel level root work on this one this year. And it's doing pretty well.
It looks good, yeah. Looks
Like
it's on its way to recovery for sure.
And the branches have grown out really well. I did wire this one up, but they're growing out like really,
that's
with very little work.
Yeah, very, very nice.
So
I'll have to give me one of those. It's one of the few that's not on my list too. So in honor of Tony, I better get on the ball here.
Yeah,
very nice.
You're going to the National Arboretum.
I'm going to the National Arboretum, and
it's amazing. It's my favorite place.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Last time I was there, I go a couple of times a year for work.
Yeah.
And I picked up some acorns last time I was there. So these are growing from acorns.
The acorns from there.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So I think I grabbed like a dozen, and the squirrels managed to get in here. So I only got
a few of them.
I got 2 or 3, I think, growing. I really like ginkgos as well. They're not great for bonsai, obviously, but
although everybody gives them a try, we have a couple in the club that have a couple of decent ones, and they're not a tree that you all of a sudden see this really nice Nabari big trunk type trees, but they'll have them in like clump style, or they're tall and more slender, elegant looking. But for the color of the leaves in the fall, kind of like the larch that I love so much, like when you can have that kind of a different looking tree in the fall and just like go, wow.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
I have one here, but
So
they just don't branch well.
Yeah, they're very odd, and when I've seen them, they're very peculiar trees.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's one of those things in bonsai again too, that this is not an easy craft to begin with, and some trees just really make you think and really make you work hard, and that's one of them.
My personal favorite things are I like literati style and slant style. But I really like, this is one where it's got a great
base there.
Yeah, but I kind of like how it's elegant and then it's kind of chaotic at the top.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the literatis that catch my eye is they got this nice elegant trunk going up and kind of some crooked parts in it. Then all of a sudden, whatever it do, it zigzags, right? It has something really gnarly on top, and it changes the whole composition of it.
Yeah, there's a I can't remember if it's a dawn redwood or a bald cypress at the Harvard Botanical Gardens. It's like this big at the base.
Okay.
And it's like a flat top style, but then it has one branch that is like really thick that just drops down, and it's like this very elegant tree, and then there's this one branch that's like pulls your attention away. It's
very
really
nice.
It's really kind of cool. So this is one that just kind of grows out of control.
Yeah, I noticed that one in our first walkthrough, and that's some interesting looking tree there.
A Jacqueline Hillier elm.
Okay.
And this is, I think I've cut it back twice already this year.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing like this.
So like my Zelkova, really grows like a weed.
Yeah. But it's
very nice.
I'm trying to thicken up the base a little bit because But I don't think I want it much bigger than this. I just would like the base
Yeah,
to
just
get
get
a
the
little
base
bigger.
thicker. But it looks like it's going to grow out whether you want it to or not every time anyway, so you'll be
Yeah.
able to grow out that top whenever you choose.
And I'm not really worried about the branches shading out because it backbuds
So well.
I'm constantly clearing it out. So, larch. This year they just were terrible for me.
They grew like crazy for me up in Minnesota.
And I don't know. I repotted them all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
Not sure?
not sure what happened with them. This one's doing okay now.
Yeah, that one doesn't look bad at all. Now, is that your second flush, third flush?
This is third flush.
Third flush already,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'm on third. I just trimmed a couple before I left, and I'm sure I'll be trimming them, of course, again before the winter comes. But yeah,
I'm trying not to
Crazy.
touch them much. This one's really struggling. I don't know what.
now I had a couple this year that just went brown,
Yeah.
randomly brown, but then the whole tree rebudded and put a whole new flush on after the brown. So I don't know what happened. I did spray it just in case for a fungicidal type spray,
Yeah.
and that tree is okay. There's another one doing the same thing, and that one's not recovering as well. I have no, and just one in a forest of like about 7 trees. One did that.
Yeah.
Why? And again, who knows? Who knows?
I think I'm going to put these into a forest planting at some point,
Yeah.
but they're just not healthy enough right now. So.
I imagine there's not too many tamarack down in Indiana.
No.
In nature. Yeah.
No.
So that's one thing David Cruss said. I was talking with someone recently about the Daves, Dave Severson in Brainerd, Minnesota, and Dave Cruss in Brainerd, and he says we're not letting them freeze enough in the wintertime. People are putting them in cold frames. No, let them go solid.
Yeah.
Just let them freeze. Let them do their thing and bring them back when they're done. I mean, that he really recommends. He thinks a lot of us in the club at Minnesota Bonsai Society are doing too much cold frame stuff.
That makes sense.
So
yeah.
let them get cold. Let them do their rest. They need that dormancy, that hard dormancy.
And I overwinter most of my trees in here. I put a tarp over it, so
Okay.
because even in the winter when the sun's out, like it can get
Oh.
up to 50, 60 degrees in
Easily,
here.
I bet. Yes.
But it really doesn't get below 30.
Yeah.
in
I was
here.
going to say, let's jump right to that question. What's your microclimate here? I mean, what are your highs and lows and kind of the peaks and valleys?
So lows we get down to like 0, not like
That's
1
your
or 2 days.
that's your polar vortex.
Yeah.
Ooh, we hit 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I heat it so in the winter, so when it drops down below 30, the heater turns on, so it doesn't in here. It doesn't. Get
So nothing's really freezing in here
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
in the summer, today's one of our warmer days. It's going to get up into the high 80s, but with the humidity, it'll be 100.
Feeling like
yeah.
100. Yeah.
We get into the 90s for a few days, but not a ton.
Interesting.
So lots of humidity.
Yeah.
You guys had a really wet spring. We had a wet winter and a dry spring. So
we had 2 stretches of 5 days without rain from like the 1st of June to the end of July here. 1st of May. I'm sorry. 1st of May till now, we've had 2 times where we had 5 days without rain only.
Yeah, we've had the
Wet.
opposite. It's been it
Only
was
5 days of rain, maybe.
Yeah, it was a drought spring for sure.
Oh my gosh, it's
So,
crazy. Yeah, you got to work your trees with your microclimate. Can't stress that enough.
And I only have 1 rain barrel, and I try not to use tap water but especially with like the azaleas. But
yeah, for sure.
so this was one that just keeps growing like so weird. Like I've not wired this. I cut it from time to time, and it just like
Look at that. Not a wire on it, huh?
no, I've never wired this, and it just keeps growing like these weird branches, and I'm like. I'm just gonna I kind of cut off the ones that grow up,
Yeah.
just to encourage it to do whatever it's gonna do. But
Sure.
I'm kind of excited to see where this goes, and I haven't picked a front or anything. I just
You're lucky it's in a round pot. You don't have to do anything for a while.
It's got all the fronts.
It does. Every front someone could imagine.
So,
So how long have you had this greenhouse?
2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this. This is your second full grow season. No, third full grow season.
Yeah.
22, 23, now 24.
Yeah.
What do we got? About 12 deep?
Yeah, it's 8 by 12.
8 by 12. Yeah, very manageable size and very nice. A kit I'm sure you found somewhere.
Yeah, Costco, I think.
Really?
And then I had I'm in the real estate business, so I had one of our contractors put it together and run power out to it and everything.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really kind of allowed me to do a lot more and control a lot more,
Yeah.
with watering and whatnot. So, and I really like tropical trees, but, it's hard to do that when
Yeah.
they have to be inside for a lot of the year.
A big chunk of the year. Yeah.
I really admire Nigel's ability to do it even much further north than us. So.
Yes. Well, in his plant room where he can barely even crawl in there.
I know.
When he gets all that stuff in there. So yeah, size becomes an issue.
And this is a crepe myrtle, which is one of my favorite trees. Again, you're going out to DC, so you're going to see some great full-size crepe myrtles.
Yeah.
It kind of came to me with this like bend to it, and I wanted to tighten it up a little bit.
Sure.
But I repotted this year too, so I'm just kind of letting it grow out
Yeah.
before I'll thin it out.
I had one once that came from an auction, so you never know where it's really coming from or what they did to it last. I never met the owner of it, and it died within a year.
Oh,
So
really?
it was like one of those sad things. And it had a trunk that was, decent trunk, and I was really excited about it. And maybe I killed it. Maybe it was just weak to begin with. Who knows?
They seem to be very slow growers,
Yeah.
but the flowers are beautiful,
Yeah, flower.
and then they get that that peeling bark.
Yeah.
That is really kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I have some jaboticabas down here as well that also you can see they're peeling.
Bark is peeling right off, and they got that real smooth looking bark.
Yeah, these need to be repotted.
Yeah, it's funny. We look for all those scraggly, scrappy barks from birches or pines, and even birches for I suppose a little bit. Some of the river birches, and they all have that white paper that peels. But yeah, some of these trunks that just peel off and it's just smooth is very cool. Look at that thing.
Yeah, these are really growing fast now. I hard prune these. They tend to grow at the end. So.
And what are these again? These are the
jaboticaba.
Jaboticaba.
Yeah.
I can never say that word, but there it is.
So this is mostly just stuff that's growing out that needs direct sunlight. The stuff in the greenhouse gets UV protection because of the greenhouse. So
Sure.
this is all just directly in the sun. So this is, speaking of Weigerts, this is a Nia.
Look at that fun thing.
And it just had no root base at all when I repotted it. So it's just kind of growing, but I've seen some really great Nias. Their foliage is really tight, but they tend to want to, instead of branch, they want to sprout new branches from the base.
From the base.
When I cut them back. So.
Well, we do like back budding, right?
But I think I'm going to have to trunk chop that at some point. But for the next year or so, I'm just going to make sure that it has some roots.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, we need some roots.
and it has started growing. This is all probably in the last week.
Wow.
But I haven't touched it all summer. So
Now, what's that tree again?
A Nia.
A Nia. That's a new one to me.
Neea.
Okay.
It's a tropical tree, and they tend to the ones I've seen, the finished ones I've seen are they kind of look like maple trees, so they bush out. So
they look like they'd be like a weeping willow style tree, the way they're growing right
Yeah.
now, and the airiness of it. It almost like it's going to weep and be a willow, but that's just because it's growing real tall right now and skinny, and those would be bending over.
So this is going to be a forest planting at some point.
All 5 of these trees.
All
yeah.
5 of these, and I don't have many pines or junipers. This is one that I've kind of been working on. This is a sacrifice branch, so
The bottom one.
yeah, the bottom,
Yep.
all of this.
All that's just thickening up everything.
So I wired this up to kind of, again, working these branches back.
Yep.
So they're tighter.
Uh-huh.
But
They don't thicken up as fast.
yeah,
They really don't.
I thought with all of this,
Yeah.
this would thicken up, but
Yeah.
it's not getting there. But another hawthorn.
Oh yeah, nice. I like the lean on that one.
Yeah. So it has some inverse taper. I don't know. I think I may have to
Bring
cut
it back
off.
a little bit. Yeah.
These are also, I didn't realize how, I did cut the top of this one off at one point. The wood is so hard. And the ironwood, whatever they're called, secateurs,
Yeah.
are really perfect
For that kind of tree, yeah, because they're so hard and yeah. What's that big thick thing back there, maple?
This is a maple, and this has been struggling. So this was actually something I picked up at a full-size tree that I picked up at Costco, and I liked the base, and it had like a really nice spreading base. So I was like, okay, instead of planting it in the yard.
Yeah.
And then this year, like it started to die off everywhere, and I don't know if it's got. I've sprayed it and whatnot, but I kind of partially defoliated it, but it's just really struggling. And boxwoods.
Yeah.
I want to do root over rock or root over something. So I like this idea, like Nigel's VW Bug. Like
Yeah.
I like that kind of post-apocalyptic idea. So like I was thinking for these like an old Ferris wheel that's like abandoned and having a tree
Growing through it and all. I love it. I love it.
So again, I'm just letting the roots grow really long.
So I think Steven just did the new challenge for everybody, right? The apocalyptic design, right? Something old and grown over, and we'll call it an apocalyptic challenge.
Right.
All right, we'll have to stew on that one for a little bit. Look at the base on that one. Fun, fun, fun.
Again, bald cypress. I'm doing this as a flat top as well. I'm kind of just letting it grow right now, but I kind of see this as being chaotic at the top as well.
Sure, yeah.
So
That elegant bottom leading up to chaos.
yeah, this is my pot of
Potpourri.
stuff I've pulled out of my yard.
There you go, yard trees.
And-
It's yardadori.
Yeah, and no real reason to like keep it because none of it's like interesting at all. But like,
I have an urban yamadori of these guys. Is this is that a cedar tree or a eastern red cedar, eastern white cedar type tree?
Yeah, I think it's an eastern red cedar.
Yeah.
I think.
And mine's getting some pretty interesting curve to it, and it was just chopped from a yard, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a fun one. It's a recovery tree, but I'll be curious what happens to it. But
Yeah,
right now it's just sitting in the corner, just kind of growing.
Yeah, I take my version of the blue scissors to them a couple of times a year, thin out the branches a little bit.
I need me a blue scissors. I just need me a blue scissors.
I mean, a lot of the way I approach bonsai is I don't have a ton of time to do it.
Yeah.
So like spending time on the things I have to spend time on and really doing it well. So like,
Yeah.
that's why I buy soil instead of make it.
Right, right.
But
Well, everybody's got their own way to do it, man. There's no right or wrong. I have to laugh at, I was waiting for the first person to say on this road trip, it's like, are you really meeting a whole bunch of strangers? So at the restaurant last night, for all you that don't know, we jibber-jabbed about that a little bit, and it's like, okay, once we got past, okay, we're not going to hurt each other.
it's the asymmetry of it. Like I've watched probably hundreds of your videos, so like you're not a stranger to me, but we've never met before.
I wouldn't have known what I was walking into. So we met at a public place. We had a great meal, and it was absolutely fantastic. Well, let's do what I do, of course, almost all the time. You told me already about 19, but what got you hooked into bonsai? I mean, what really started it all for you?
Yeah, so I run a statewide nonprofit, and sometimes that is very stressful. And somebody told me that I needed a hobby that taught me patience.
Who was that somebody?
Somebody who worked for me.
Okay, all right.
I just started Googling, I didn't really have a hobby at the time.
You Googled hobbies.
Yeah.
And you came up with bonsai.
And I came up with bonsai.
I love that.
And so like it started probably the way that a lot of people start, like with like $15 tree. I think it was from Costco that my wife actually picked up for me, like, hey, you're going to start doing this. And then it kind of just exploded from there. So yeah. And then with the pandemic, obviously, like I was home all the time. We went almost completely remote, and so I just had a lot more time to be able to dedicate to it.
Yeah.
So
When did YouTube enter the scene for you, and how did that begin?
it started right away. So one of the very first trees I got was a weeping willow, and so like I had no idea how to care for it. So I just Googled, weeping willow bonsai, and one of Nigel's videos came up, and so I started watching it. I was like, who is this guy? And then I just started watching them, and I think the next person who I started watching pretty regularly was Peter Chan, and then that was about the time you started having much more regular content. So like I think I started watching you pretty regularly around your second or third season.
Wow.
So yeah.
So you've seen a fair amount of me over the years.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna get to this question right away because so one of my counterparts overseas, we talked about him last night, Xavier, and I have been collaborating a little bit. I've thrown out casually on Nigel's, one of his premieres. I've thrown it out in the text and everything, and there's expos all over the world. And can you get to the National Museum? Can you get to Chicago? In a couple weeks in August, they're going to have this thing. By the time this airs, it's probably happened already. But is there something we can do with the YouTube community? So I've thought about developing this YouTube expo that we would, start overseas for them about noon, which for us would be like 4 in the morning, and have them do 6 to 8 hours of bonsai, and then it comes over to the States, and then we do 6 to 8 hours of bonsai, and it's a one-day marathon YouTube expo where no one has to get out of bed, they don't have to get out of their pajamas, they don't have to leave in their car, and they can watch some amazing content from all the YouTubers.
I think that's a great idea, and I know like during the pandemic, a lot of the conferences that I would go to went virtual, and so there are platforms out there where you can have you could have rooms for pines and rooms for tropical, and you could go to wherever you wanted to go. And
exactly.
I think that's a great idea, and really, I think what really has opened my eyes around bonsai is what the idea of community is, because like I said, we've never met before, but we would never have met otherwise.
Met.
So I think ways to reinforce that, especially around the world, I think would be really exciting.
Yeah, and I've tapped into a few people around the world now who have been open to this idea, and will I get Adam, from Notion Bonsai, and he said he'd be seriously thinking about helping out, and again, whether people can create a little video content where we can have some live panel discussions. I mean, but from around the world, so people can kind of see what's happening in their microclimates and what they do with trees, and again, I love how you just used the word community, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the bonsai community. And it's what's made my channel. It's what's made so many decisions in my life in the last few years. And Bonsai Acres, someday to have people out there on my property. And it's such a cool group of eclectic people. We're all over the map, but we can just talk about trees and geek out a little bit.
And I think the other thing that is really interesting about it is everybody's approach on their channels is very different. And so Nigel's documenting his life, right? I think, there are others, I feel like your channel is more instructional, here's why I'm doing this, and then there are other people who are I'm just Tony was I'm just going to bend this and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just going to do this till it breaks.
And so I think it's something that unites everybody, but everybody has their own unique approach to it, and the things that speak to them, and the channels that resonate with them. And I think it is interesting that in spite of the fact that everybody's just growing tiny trees, that there is a unique aspect to it that that resonates with different people.
Yeah, and I don't know how other way to describe it other than just this community, and there's just this camaraderie and acceptance, and again, with so many people from so many parts of the world and such different backgrounds, and 98% of everything that's commented on YouTube that I've ever seen is people just support each other and just check it out. And it's like the rest of the world should be. You take what you can take and you leave the rest.
Right.
But you don't you don't mock the person or you don't put them down. You just take what you know. I know nobody watches my videos from cover to cover. Sometimes Nigel says he does. But
I do.
You speed ahead and you see what's going. But then there's those people every once in a while. Someone will comment about something that I said 17 and a half minutes in. I'm like, oh my God, they're still watching, or they fast forwarded and got to this point, and they make a comment on a real specific thing, and that's pretty cool. And it's nice that people. In the world I'm in with teaching, we mock and joke about technology all the time and the phones in our hands all the time. And here, what am I doing? I'm catering to the digital world by making these videos and having people sit down. But hopefully they're escaping into something that they just really enjoy, and they watch this, learn something from it, gain something from it, go do their own thing. So I think it's been a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think bonsai is not accessible if not for YouTube, because you could spend your whole life trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And really the channels that are out there really make it so that casual hobbyists like me can actually do it with some level of confidence that we're not going to completely screw it up. I would never have cut as many roots off of a tree had I not watched you and Nigel and Yella and all of these other people just cut it off.
Just cut it off, man. That's right. And there's a ton of books out there, but it's good or sad, or who knows people's opinions about books, and some people just despise YouTube bonsai because bonsai can't happen in a workshop. Bonsai can't happen with one video or even a series of videos. It takes time and all these techniques we use. But the books are wonderful, but so many of them are outdated now.
Yeah.
And people talk in our club all the time like, yeah, but that we don't even do that practice anymore. And so it just is so changing that YouTube does give us a chance to kind of keep it fresh. Here's what's happened. Here's what I just did this year or last year. My tree loves it. My tree hates it. In our instant society, and as busy as we all are, there is that perk of YouTube. It's fresh, it's alive, and then it's also documentation. I love that part of Nigel's. I can go back and watch him from 2015 and see what he did with that tree, and now look at it today, and I love that archival.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, like his Sarissa, you go back and you think, oh my gosh, like even in 2015, like it wasn't that impressive of a tree, and like in a very short period of time doing what he does, like and it gives you hope. Like if your tree looks like this, like in 5 or 7 years, it could be really something else, like exceptional.
And then when you go see some of the collections, when you see that Sarissa up close, when I was there 2 years ago, I can't wait to see that tree again. It's always been one of my favorites, and I can't wait to go see it in a couple of days here. I'm going to see that Sarissa up close, and it's just an amazing thing. What I love about the YouTube too, and what I love about what we're doing here, and what this whole thing for me is the hobbyist. Now there's plenty of professionals I'm talking to on this trip. There's a couple that I've connected with, and that's also to continue my growth, share the wealth growth, because we're all sharing all this knowledge. But I love what you just said there. Can someone just pick up a tree or 2 or 3 or 6, keep it alive, and start doing some things that really start to bonsai this thing and make it look, and enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, as I often say. So the people that I'm visiting primarily, and what I'm most excited about, to be honest, was sitting right here and seeing your collection and saying, hey, and I love the professionals, and I love what you go see at an exhibition. We're like going, well, I'll never get there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's overwhelming to say the least. But we can do this and still enjoy it at a really high level, even if we're not at the Botanical or if we're not at the National Museum.
Yeah, and it's as much about like you said, take care of you, take care of your bonsai. Like it is about mental health and like being aware and being cognizant of like what's important. And I think that's a really important part. Like even if you're never going to have an exhibition tree, and I probably never will, but like that's not even necessarily the point.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, because that is at the core of who I am, and I say that for a reason on my clothes. Take care of you. And it's even not grammatically correct. I know you're supposed to say take care of yourself, but I love the phrase my brother used to say. You do you. You do you, and Jason Mraz, who I talked about my live post. Jason Mraz has a song that way. You do you, I'll do me. Together we'll make some harmony or melody or whatever. But we have to, worldwide, for the world down to a bonsai tree group of people, just be yourself, take care of yourself, take care of your trees, and just, I love the mental health piece.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of the reason why bonsai and the YouTube community kind of exploded during the pandemic, because people were looking for ways to make sure that they're not consumed by all of the chaos that's going on in the world. So
COVID's over.
yeah.
You're not working from home all the time anymore.
No.
You said you're busy.
Yes.
You said a couple times today that you give the blue scissors treatment once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for you on your bonsai journey? Like what do you see in 3 to 5 years down the road? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm really kind of just enjoying, like, as you've seen, like, I have a lot of different kinds of trees. I don't really have particular favorites right now, and really trying to figure out which ones are the ones that I want to spend more time with, and develop that specific aspect of my collection.
Yeah.
We were talking about how I don't really grow pines. Maybe that's something I get into.
Take a risk.
I am trying to do more deciduous trees because I'm out of room in my house
for
with
the tropical
trees. I also really like native trees and focusing on the trees that grow here anyway, and identifying the ones that can be bonsaified. So
I love that, and that's another push I want to continue, and that's what Bonsai Acres is going to be a lot about. I want trees in Bonsai Acres that grow in Minnesota, that can stay in the ground in Minnesota, but then when I pot them up, I can care for them and have that winter care outside if I need to, or a cold frame if I have to. But yeah, what species can someone from any part of any region, well, like, go to those trees, and are these bonsaifying techniques working on most trees? Yeah. Just make sure, again, I keep referring Chris Baker because I just talked about jack pines. So I can grow jack pines in Minnesota, and they'll grow in the ground there just fine, but can they be bonsaified? And yeah, it's just, but don't do a lot, and don't love it to death, is what we affectionately say sometimes. You're going to repot it and let it go. And then next year, give it a big heavy wiring job. Then the next year, a big old chop or something, or some major. But so you have to know. So knowing your region and knowing your trees, and that makes it, I think, easier, hopefully.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll start teaching everybody that we can make those regional trees some pretty cool bonsai.
Yeah, and I really like that. It's pretty easy to buy tropical trees, but it's not as easy to buy deciduous and pine trees. So, like,
Right.
And so I really like the idea that, like, thinking about the folks who maybe don't have as much access to material. Yeah. So I think it's great.
Yeah, if it's one thing I've learned in the club, and our club does a wonderful job in so many areas, but what I've noticed about the club, or just in my region, I say this to all the newbies: what does everybody need to do bonsai? They need soil, and you can buy it online anywhere. But so I'm trying to supply some good soil for people. We need trees, though, and pots come too. And you can go search potters now all over the place, and there's some wonderful potters. I have Sarah Rayner in my backyard, but not everybody has that either. But you have to have trees.
Yeah.
So you have to have trees to work on, and hopefully trees that are going to work in your area, and a little bit easier to find than just hunting and pecking at some of the nurseries, which can give you some great stuff. But yeah, so we'll see where that takes us.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun journey. Cool. Yeah. So experimentation, maybe a pine for you. And you said earlier the greenhouse was kind of a game changer for you, or you really think that's becoming a game changer, or you like the control. Tell us a little bit more again about that. Greenhouse is nice, 12 feet by 8, and not everybody can afford or has room for a greenhouse, but you're talking pretty highly about it.
Yeah. So when I think about bonsai, I think about, like, when you're going to spend money on something, spend money on the part that makes it easier for you to do bonsai, not necessarily a tree.
Yeah.
And so the greenhouse was an investment, obviously, but it was something that I recognized that, like, I wanted to do more trees. We get some pretty cold winters here, and so I definitely wanted the opportunity to control the environment a little bit more in the summer and the winter. And so it just made sense for me, as I'm trying to figure out what kind of trees I want to grow. Like, it gives me the opportunity to grow a lot of different kinds of trees. And again, like, I'm very fortunate. I can afford to buy it.
Yep.
I had somebody put it together for
There
me.
you
We
go.
had
Right.
we had power run out to it, so it can be
Nice.
heated and cooled.
There you go. There you go.
But there are other things like I said, if time is a constraint, spend money on the soil. Let's say you're not spending your time, doing those tasks that make some people like mixing their soil, so but what the things that that are barriers to you enjoying the hobby.
Yeah.
That's where I recommend people spend their money, not necessarily on trees.
Sure. Good message. And then I always throw in there a counter to that too. Is people don't have to spend a ton
Oh, absolutely.
to get into this hobby. Some people will throw out that kind of almost raised nose, snobbery kind of feel about bonsai. Like, well, no. You can go to any nursery store and go to the discount section and you can buy trees for $10, $50, $3, $8, $10, $15, $20 and have some real, and again, people will say who are into bonsai for years and want to show their trees at an expo, well, you gotta start getting into some quality trees eventually, man. Well, yeah, but you don't. You can just have a greenhouse with some of your 10, 20 trees that were $20 and less and have a blast. And again, find your moment and get some mental health.
Yeah.
Be in your zen.
And some of my favorite trees are just cuttings off of other trees that I didn't like that much. And so
you took a cutting and took it in your own direction.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I absolutely agree. Like, you don't have to spend money. If you do have the opportunity to spend money, think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. For
sure. So 2 years in, any tips? Anything you do differently? I mean, this looks like a pretty successful, really nice, sturdy, elegant looking. I love it. Any thoughts 2 years in?
Yeah, I really love it. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to have out of a greenhouse. So I ended up going with the 8 by 12, knowing that was probably bigger than what I needed at the time. But
I'm always going to tell people to buy bigger than they think.
Yeah,
because even the one I built, what did I joke about on mine? I needed a foot wider to walk through it, right?
Right.
And mine's different. It's this passive solar thing and a huge, all this kind of. But if you can go one bigger, and again, I know money's an issue for all of us, but it's like if you just would have spent $200 more to get that extra space or whatever, it's like, oh, in the end, again, like you said, make it so it's easy. When people build cold frames to keep our trees, winter hardy, or they're winter hardy, but we keep some after repotting, or the Japanese maples and all those in the cold frames. You have to make it accessible and workable. If you make just this box and it's like hard to get in, your trees are going to die. You're not going to check them very much. So whether it's a greenhouse or a cold frame, make it so it's so accessible and easy to touch every tree.
Yeah.
And if you make it too small and you're ducking and doing, then it's going to be harder. You've just made your hobby harder.
Yeah, and not just the trees. Like I have I don't use a lot of wire, but the wire's like on a spool.
Yeah.
All my tools are accessible. The fertilizer and the systemic insect killer that I use, all of it's like very easily accessible, so that when I need something, it's available. I'm not like spending time like running around, going into the garage, whatever.
Awesome.
So like that was one of the things that like I thought, as I was thinking about a greenhouse, like also storage of all this stuff and making sure that it is something that I can grab when I have 10 minutes, and not a whole day.
Take a whole day to do it, or half an hour, an hour.
Yeah,
absolutely. Fantastic.
The only thing about the greenhouse, and I've gotten better about this, humidity is an issue, and so like right now it's all open.
Wide open.
I have a fan in it. So there are a couple of weeks in the summer where I have to be very careful about that. And then like being careful not to water the tops of the trees because they get fungus that way. But otherwise, it extends the growing season by at least 2 months, and it gives you a lot more control over.
Yeah, 2 more months of growth is a kind of a good thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I had my tropicals out in the greenhouse until almost Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah, my cutoff dates right now, I think for the PSGF, if I can go to December 15 and then kind of wake them up February 15th, there's my 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And really by March 1st, I think is when my tree started. I had my larches were a full month ahead of everybody else's. They already had flush number 1 done.
Yeah.
a month early. It was
You also have to be prepared for that and be ready to
when you have 100 trees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be ready to repot in February.
That's right. And
yeah.
some of our folks do, and they'll put them back in their cold frame because they'll have a busy season coming up. So yeah.
The other great thing about the greenhouse with especially Japanese maples, which I'm not great with Japanese maples, but they tend to get sunburned really easily.
They kind of do.
And that greenhouse has UV protection, so you can have them come out, spend the first couple of months and get it acclimated, and not worry that their first flush will get burnt.
I can't tell you how many times in the last year or so that shade, and more shade has been the key. And we're talking maples that love sun, right? We like our deciduous trees and our pines, all these trees that love sun, but the maples in particular, I just keep hearing shade, and I have some shade in my backyard, and those trees are loving it. And when your trees start to pale up a little bit, and they're just looking a little bit peaked and not yellowish like we've underwater, but they're just pale green. Take them out of the shade for 2 to 4 weeks, or out of the sun. Put them in the shade and let them recover. And the trees I saw yesterday in Chicago at the Botanical Gardens, how this tree had leaves on there that were dark and leaves that were light, and he goes, this is now turning darker because we put it in the shade.
Yeah.
And how your tree is going to look that much healthier just from protecting it from that sun.
And my greenhouse is under this big tree, and that was kind of intentionally.
Absolutely.
So I get a lot of sun in the morning and sun in the evening, but not midday.
Heat of the day, So I'm losing my tree in the backyard. The ash is making me suffer a bit, so that's harsh. And also I've noticed on commercial greenhouses on my driving and just in this summer, a lot of greenhouses have more shade over their greenhouse, a thin layer of shade. Yeah. To again protect, so keeping things from not exploding. Because I've seen as high as about 110 in my greenhouse on the thermometer a couple times, but my misters bring it back down, and we're okay. But you got to be watching them.
And then with the tropicals in the summer, like the aftercare of repotting, there's no wind in there, so you don't really have to worry about it. And we have a lot of squirrels, obviously, so like
can protect them a little bit more.
Keep the rodents away for sure. So
well, there you go. And you had said it was a Costco kit, huh?
It was, and I kind of looked at a bunch of different ones. The one thing that I always say I didn't think about was I was thinking about the footprint, but like a lot of my trees are just growing out right now, and so height is really important as well.
If you have greenhouses that are real domey and hoop house style, and not high enough hoop house,
right?
Yeah, I can see how that'd be. Yeah.
So a lot of mine are hitting the roof. Some of them were growing out of the vents. But yeah,
that's great.
I think mine's 7 feet tall. Another foot would have been great.
There you go. It's the extra foot.
Yeah.
You heard it here multiple times. PSGF, that one, a foot more, and you're good to go.
I suppose you'll probably run out of room no matter how big it is. But
it's just, George Carlin used to say, you just need more room for more of your stuff. Right,
exactly.
You keep making it bigger, you're going to fill it up with stuff anyway. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and talking bonsai. And again, if there's nothing else I'm getting from this trip is to meet some face-to-face people who love this hobby, who've watched some YouTube and appreciate what YouTube can offer. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you guys. And thanks to your wife again. And this has been fabulous.
It's been great to have you. And thank you so much for all the content. I literally wouldn't be able to do this without you. I mean, it is...
well, thank you. We'll keep learning together.
As happened a lot on this road trip, I didn't give enough time to be in each place. Now, granted, I saw Steven and his wife for dinner out beforehand, and then we spent some time in the morning. I was so quick to get off to my next location, I forgot to give him my shirt, my Bonsai Acre shirt that I had for him for taking the time to be with me. And so I did put that in the mail and get it to him. And he had this the heater that he gave me too on the way out. So again, I got more gifts on this trip than I gave, and that was the wrong way. I was hoping to thank everybody for being viewers. So thanks again to Steven and his wife Beth. Fantastic people. Can't wait to collab again. More talk about Bonsai Acre stuff with Steve. He and I talked about a few things. So looking forward to where that all is going to go. And I'll come back down anytime to talk bonsai with you, Steven, and hang out with you and your wife and have a great meal and have some great laughs. Until the next one, everybody, there's so much more road trip to go. We just getting started here, everybody. Until those edits, hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai. And we'll see you very soon on the next one.